Hi guys, my name's Jen, and on this channel I talk about being a female diagnosed with autism and ADHD. Last week I put out a video to try to add some insight to the public perception of what autism can look like in adults. I also wanted to bring some attention to the concerningly sparse research being done on autism in adulthood. But unfortunately in doing so, I fear an undesirable message was inadvertently sent, so let's talk about it. If you want the Reader's Digest version, when I made last week's video, I didn't make the distinction clear that I was talking about high-masking adults, which is only about half the population of autistics, and it could be concluded from that video that all autistics should be able to control their autism once they get older, or that the visible traits of autism are childish, immature, and only for kids. So that's the gist of it for you impatient people out there. For the rest of you, I invite you to stick around to learn more about the ridiculous notion that autistics should just be able to get their autism in check. When I started this channel, I wanted to show how autism can look different by sharing my own experiences because the diagnosis went unnoticed in me for the majority of my life. I wanted to change the way autism is viewed by others so that what happened to me and many other late diagnosed people out there doesn't keep happening to more people in the future. So I put a video out there that went beyond just my own experiences to be a little more broad, to show what autism can look like in adults. But as I just mentioned, I neglected to clarify that I was only talking about a portion of the autistic population that some might refer to as high-masking autistics, and that I wasn't talking about all autistic adults. Many of us are adept at suppressing or hiding visible traits to camouflage our autism through coping strategies, social scripts, and other compensations we've developed as we age. But the truth of the matter is that there are probably just as many autistic adults who do exhibit more visible traits of autism as those who don't. And we'll discuss why I think that is in a little bit. But what I was trying to do was to include high-masking adults in the discussion, because those who do visibly exhibit traits seem to be the more widely accepted view of autism, and they're more likely to get recognized. So it is a necessary and worthwhile endeavor. However, I don't want anyone who watched that video to now think that all autistics should just be able to control themselves once they grow up, hence the title of this video. That message would be super damaging, and I didn't start this channel to bring harm to the autistic community. I started this channel to hopefully add value to it. So when it comes to getting the message right, everything else takes a back seat. High-masking adults didn't wrangle up their autism and beat it into submission. They don't have control of their autism, they're only suppressing some of the traits. And all this constant masking has its own heavy toll of depression, shutdowns, fatigue, anxiety, and even physical ailments. And quite frankly, it's offensive that societal norms dictate that the traits of autism are so shameful that we should be hiding them in the first place. So many of the traits of autism aren't bad or wrong, and they're not hurting anyone. It's not bad or wrong to flap your hands in joy, for example, when something excites you. Matter of fact, maybe you should try it sometime. I bet it would feel pretty good. No, these things are just viewed as weird by non-autistic people, which is completely subjective and why we have an entire diagnostic criteria centering around the medical model of deficits. And to be clear, those who do exhibit visible traits of autism aren't being childish or immature. They're being autistic. I referenced several times in my video how many of us grow out of visibly expressing autism in a way that others can see, and that is true for a lot of us. Many autistics might start out not speaking, flapping their hands, or melting down, but that doesn't mean that those behaviors are childish. You might be able to make that excuse if a diagnosable neurological condition wasn't at play here, but it is. The comment section of YouTube is a great place for viewers to bring different perspectives and to fill in some of the gaps that creators might miss. So I wanted to highlight a few of those here today. Now, do I make response videos to every piece of feedback or criticism? No, I do not. But when the subject matter is material and valid, it's worth including in the discussion. So I'll start out with this comment, which is rather long, so I'm not going to read the entire thing, but you're welcome to pause the video at this point if you'd like to read it in its entirety. But I think the first few sentences did a pretty good job of summarizing an important point, which reads as follows. There are some people whose meltdowns still look like throwing themselves on the floor. I don't know if implying adults can just control that is helpful, because it's not true for every everyone. Not all of us can mask and script and learn social rules and hide our stimming and speak. And that's absolutely correct. This person also points out that the preferred terms for those who aren't verbal is non-speaking as opposed to non-verbal. Now, I'm not a huge fan of being legalistic or politically correct all the time, but I do value words and meanings, and this makes sense to me. While both terms are oftentimes used interchangeably, nonverbal could give the implication that somebody is completely unable to use words or communicate, which isn't true. I myself have found I'm unable to talk for periods of time during shutdowns, but I can talk. Obviously, I'm here annoying all of you with it right now. And I've often referred to this as going nonverbal, but I'm not nonverbal. I may not be able to form words in those moments, but I can still communicate, as can non-speaking autistics. Another commenter pointed out that saying everyone's perception of autism being a little white boy could be harmful to them, like it's their fault they became the unwilling mascot of autism, and that they too deserve compassion and understanding once they become autistic adults. And I couldn't agree more. My beloved son, who happened to be a little white boy when he was diagnosed, was how I found out I was on the spectrum. I know he will grow up to be an autistic adult, and I oftentimes wonder what that's going to look like for him. But all I know for now is that I love him very much, and I will love and support him in any way I can until the day I die. I'm not trying to exclude people by having these conversations. I'm merely trying to include more of us into the idea of what autism looks like. And while this is navigating a little off topic here, I also want to talk about the point in that video where I discussed Down syndrome and autism. This came up because of the fact that when I Googled images for autism, a picture of a little girl with Down syndrome was in the top search results. A few of you pointed out that while I was correct in saying that trisomy and autism aren't the same thing, that the two can be comorbid, which is also correct. Some estimates show that up to 20% of those who have Down syndrome are also autistic. However, I know that myself and many others once had or still have the misconception that autism equals intellectual disabilities. So if I and many others thought that, I think it's important not to further that perception by making these distinctions. But the two aren't mutually exclusive. And if you didn't know that, now you know. But getting back on track to the point of this video, the comment that hit me in the feels was this one here. I'm an adult, but I have the reactions you describe as immature or childish. I'm wondering if I have higher support needs or if I'm just a bad person that lacks self-control. As you can imagine, that was a straw that broke the proverbial camel's back for me that made me realize I needed to do this video. The visible traits of autism aren't immature or childish. They're just autistic traits. And we can't just control ourselves to not be autistic when we grow up. We either hide them or we don't. But whether you suppress them or express them, they're still there. People don't disappear when they play hide and seek. You just can't see them for a while. We live in a society that understands how medical issues can affect us in ways we can't control, but that don't give that same understanding to different neurotypes. They seem to think that all behaviors are solely a result of personal choice, while many are, and we shouldn't be using this as an excuse, and we all have the capacity for self-control and accountability. Not all behaviors are simply choices we're making. People think that if you're acting a certain way, you're choosing to act that way, and you could simply choose not to act that way. Most of you know by now that people on the spectrum have impaired executive functioning, and executive functioning is a set of cognitive processes that help people control their thoughts, actions, and behaviors. Additionally, we have differences in sensory processing, which can make self-regulation challenging. Matter of fact, some of those noticeable stereotypies you see are autistics trying to self-regulate. So you want them to regulate their regulation? Environments and support play a huge role in how our traits manifest as well. To quote my dear friend Quinn from Autismatic,
inside everyone who likes to think of themselves as high-functioning, there's still a low-functioning, conspicuously autistic person hidden away. All it takes is the right combination of stress and trauma, that specific bundle of pressing cognitive demands that can strip away the mask hiding the struggles we might think that we've put behind us. Some of us are better at maintaining our masks than others, but none of us can keep them up indefinitely.
So, usually, hand flapping, rocking, meltdowns, shutdowns, and the likes aren't choices autistic people are making, nor is it a reflection of their character, lack of willpower, or lack of self control. And I think everything we've discussed up until this point gives us a great opportunity to discuss some terminology, and one of the major contributing factors as to why we're even having these conversations in the first place. First, we need to understand that the term Asperger's or Asperger's syndrome was removed from the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders in 2013. And it was included in the umbrella for autism. But at the time of me making this video, we're just 11 years out from all of this now being categorized under the autism spectrum disorder umbrella. So we have a long ways to go in changing public perception to match that fact. And really, I think this is a key factor in much of this being a discussion that we're having to have here today. Some people think of what used to be Asperger's as high-functioning, low support needs autism, while those who would have qualified to receive a diagnosis for autism before this point might be considered low-functioning, high support needs autistics, which is where we get into terminology, because viewing autism in this overly simplistic way isn't exactly correct. Saying someone is high functioning is misleading because it can minimize real challenges faced by individuals if they appear to function well in certain areas, and it can invalidate their experiences. A lot of us have spiky skill sets. I can say that for myself, I can run a business, manage finances, run my household, but I can't make a phone call to save my life. So saying someone is low support needs can lead to inadequate support accommodations. Similarly, saying someone is low functioning can be hurtful, infantilizing, and can lead to limited expectations of an individual's capabilities. It can lead to discrimination and ignore their strengths. And in saying someone is high support needs, you can take away from their autonomy. There was also a nasty tendency for a few bad apples diagnosed with Asperger's before it was combined into the autism umbrella to think that they were superior to those who were diagnosed with regular autism because they viewed themselves as more intelligent and more valuable as human beings. Bad apple. And again, I am not trying to be Captain Politically Correct here, but when understanding terminology matters, it matters. Now, I'm of the personal belief that it's okay to use these terms sometimes when we're trying to inform or educate, because we have to start somewhere and meet people where they are, and then elaborate on why we don't use those terms anymore. Also, at some point, we have to have words to convey concepts and ideas. We can't water everything down to a homogeneous, undefinable mess. But understanding these impactful distinctions have real-life consequences. I think it's also worthwhile to understand these concepts to begin bridging the gap of harmful division in the autistic community. Autism comes in so many shapes and sizes. That's why it's called a spectrum. And as content creators, I know we don't want to fatigue our audience with constant disclaimers and repeating the phrase, if you've met one autistic, you've met one autistic. But in some form or another, it is important to squeeze those things into every video. And I'll be the first to admit that I usually do a better job of using terminology like some of us or sometimes, instead of more concrete, convicting language like we all do this or always. As a content creator, I'm never gonna get everything right, match everyone's experiences, or make everyone happy. But there's a huge difference between pleasing the masses and trying to provide content that is more complete, encompassing, and accurate. And I'm trying to the best of my ability. I appreciate all the different voices in this community that have helped me to do that. So I'd encourage you to continue using comment sections everywhere to elaborate, inform, and share experiences, and to provide different perspectives, as long as we're all doing that with compassion and good intent. So with that, I will say good day.
Sir, I said good day!
Until next time, bye for now. Mwah.
Autistic experiences may vary, and your autism experience is not guaranteed. If you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. Jennifer from Neurodivergent Media does not claim to represent the entire autism community, and Jennifer's employees, successors, heirs, and assigns do not claim, oh, who are we kidding? It's just Jennifer doing this all by herself. Do not claim to represent the entire autistic community, nor does she claim to be an expert of the medical, legal, or mental health professional fields. If you experience any rashes, burning, or itching, you should probably get that checked out by a doctor, because that has nothing to do with autism. For best results, refer to the entire autism community for varied experiences and understanding. Neurodivergent Media is a registered trademark of nothing, because we really don't give a shit about that kind of corporate bullcrap.